Good morning, SML, and happy Friday. Unless your name is Faz, in which case, good night, go to bed. What's going on, guys? Matt, you're here with me again, as always, as you usually are. What's going on, Matt?
Yeah, I try to be here. Otherwise, it would just be M in the morning. I'm good, man. We're into the off season. We had an exciting playoffs, and I'm ready for season two.
I'm not worried about it. I could replace you pretty easily.
Oh, okay.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. SML Super Bowl was now 2 days ago, and pretty crazy game, pretty awesome game. And Mad Bomber and the Browns came out on top. It's just a great season. You got an immediate knee-jerk reaction to that.
Not really. I mean, I think Bomber was a favorite from the start. Obviously, if you start 9-0, 10-0, whatever he was, you're a favorite. He kind of stumbled late. He did avenge one of his losses to the Ravens, and and he kind of, you could say he had the easier path in the AFC playoffs. Although I'm not sure there is such a thing as an easy path. But he had to beat Dan and he had to beat Dump, and he did that. Nick Chubb, Mitchell Schwartz. What more can you say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from Bomber, but if you go into the playoffs and you look at the schedule, and you think, who do I want to play? The first name that's going to come to your head is the Jaguars, okay? But didn't get that opportunity. But then you're thinking, okay, maybe the Jets, maybe the Dolphins. I sure as heck don't want to play the Chiefs. I don't want to play the Bills. And he ended up playing the Jets and the Dolphins, which he won. He beat the Jets by a lot, beat the Dolphins by a little bit less. Then he had to go in and he had to play the hottest team in the league, which I may have cursed it on stream. Dan and the 12-5 Chargers, who were riding, I guess at that point, a 14-game win streak. And, it was a really, really good game. Down to the wire, 1-point win. That's an impressive win no matter who you play. And then you go into the NFC and you play the Cardinals, who were coming off of that stellar regular season, probably the second best regular season, maybe first if you want to put them ahead of the Bills. And I don't think that the Browns were really a favorite walking into that game. However, they were able to find a way, and boy, they didn't really look like they were in trouble much, aside from one part in the third quarter where the Cardinals made it close.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to say, and I said this in chat, I think it was extremely important for Bomber to win this Super Bowl, more so than Dump. Dump's in the NFC, which it's no secret, and I don't think there's much argument that it's a lesser talent pool. There's definitely talent, but it's on the lesser side. There's a lot of studs in the AFC. Dump's got probably the best team in the NFC, him or the Bucks. I expect him to be in the NFC Championship at the very least, probably every season. Bomber's got Murderer's Row. I mean, you've got Dan, Prime, and Faz. You're going to build that team up. You could be a spoiler. This Ravens guy, Spades, is a very solid player. He beat Bomber once and played him close the second time. Beat me both times. So he may not get the AFC South, or he may not get a lower seed in the second round and then have the easy road. He may have to beat Faz, Prime, and Dan, or some combination. So I think it was important for him to get this one, because you never know what he could be. He could get knocked out in the first round for the rest of the cycle, and that would be okay because he's got his championship.
Yeah, look, I'm not gonna say that I'm an easy win. I'm not gonna say that DW is an easy win. Those are both good wins. But I'd say it's pretty lucky you pulled those two teams in the first two rounds of the playoffs that you go into. You're the favorite in those games, like, no doubt about it. Whereas versus the rest of that AFC, maybe you're not the favorite. You would have been the favorite in week 10. I don't think you would have been the favorite in the wild card round against the Chiefs or the Bills or the Chargers. I don't think you were the favorite against the Chargers in the AFC Championship game. But that doesn't matter because you won. And Matt, you said it right. The odds of the stars aligning to the point now where any team really is going to get a chance to go up and be favorited in their first two wins, or in their first two rounds of the playoffs again, is pretty slim, at least against that heavy favorite. DW and Bomber, that was a heavy favorite. I'd say he was probably a heavy favorite against me too. So really, I mean, you could say that for anybody. It's gonna be really crazy, this AFC playoffs, for the whole cycle. And you know what? I think some of those new guys are gonna start throwing their hats in the ring coming next season.
Yeah, I mean, teams are only going to get better. I mean, the Browns do have a leg up on a lot of teams. That's a solid roster. Of course, he's got the Madden 22 cheat code in Nick Chubb. But again, like you said, he beat Dan by 1, and Dan had the ball, and he got stuffed. Great play by Bomber. Not taking anything away from him. But when you're in the AFC, against the top guys, those are the games that he's going to be playing, and that everybody in the AFC is going to be playing. Those 1-point games that could really go either way. And when you only get 7, 8 seasons, and I do think Bomber's going to be in contention all cycle. Those games can go either way. So getting that title now kind of takes the monkey off his back, I think, a little bit. Especially when you look back on last cycle where he was so close but never made it. So I'm happy for him, and I think this championship was much more important to him than it was Dump, because I think Dump's going to be he's going to be in probably 3 or 4, if not more, Super Bowls this cycle.
Yeah, I mean, Bomber has long talked about how he's not enjoying the game. Even when he was 9-0, he was like, this game's not really all that fun to me. Do you think it had anything to do with the pressure coming off of last cycle, where he didn't make the Super Bowl a single time, despite being, you could say, a top 3 team in the conference every single season?
I don't think so. I think Bomber's sentiment towards the game is echoed by quite a few people. I would think, I know we've lost some people in the first season due to personal reasons, which is totally understandable and doesn't need explained by them or anybody. But I think the game has just burnt some people out with how not really that great it is. But if you watch the Super Bowl, I think what really got Bomber was when he played the Ravens the first time, and he got burned by the streaks. But if you go and you watch the Super Bowl, Schwartz scored. He got behind the Cardinals defense with no problem on 2 touchdowns, and I think one of them ended up being the game winner, but sealed it. So I get where Bomber's coming from, that the game is frustrating and he needed content to kind of distract him from that and keep him motivated and going. And I agree, but what is an issue with the game, and what I think his issue with the game is, helped him in the Super Bowl, and that was the streaks are just a little bit overpowered because the deep blues just don't cover.
Yeah, I could be wrong about this, but I think it was the same play that Schwartz scored on both times, and the Cardinals just didn't adjust to the look they showed, and Bomber went right back to it. And that, I mean, that's another thing is you got to make those adjustments, especially in a big game like that. Obviously, a guy is going to go back to a play that worked in a situation like that in the Super Bowl of all places. I think he only ran that play 2 times, and that's all he needed. Anyways, let's flip conferences now, since the often neglected NFC, they're boring, I don't know what to tell you, is sitting over there. What are your reactions just on the results of the playoffs, not necessarily who came out of it, but maybe individual games or whatever?
Yeah, I think the NFC is probably going to be status quo for the majority of the cycle. I thought D-Muse QP was the most intriguing matchup because I think they're both really, really good players. That was their 3rd time playing. I knew and D-Muse had gotten blown out the 2 times they played in the regular season, and I knew he was going to be better, and he was. Honestly, he made a boneheaded pick 6 at the end of the first half. He had the ball, and if he'd have got points there, he'd have been up 2 scores, and I think he got the ball at half. So honestly, the Lions could have been eliminated if he doesn't throw that pick 6. But outside of that, Klink upsetting Pauly. Klink's a solid player. I just didn't think his team was there. But really, my takeaway from the NFC is it went exactly as planned. We got the 1 and 2 seed, Dump versus QP in the finals. It was a great matchup. Obviously, the Lions versus the Cardinals, I think, was the story there. It's just tough to overcome. So yeah, not a whole lot to say about the NFC. I think you're going to see it repeat itself a lot. Maybe Klink and D-Muse can kind of throw a wrench into the big three, and that would be QP, Dump, and Pauly. But yeah, I expect it to be the same. And Pauly hasn't really had a lot of playoff success, so I think QP and Dump will probably run the show. QP's already proven to be a good team builder, and he's done well with that team in its current state, and it's only going to get better.
Now, it's not to say that the NFC playoff games aren't at least interesting. They are interesting. Every single one of them is interesting. It's just, to me, they don't have the depth that we could consider Super Bowl contenders as we do in the AFC. I mean, there's at least minimum 4 teams in the AFC that you think is a Super Bowl contender any given season. And in the NFC, I'm looking at 3, maybe. If you want to count Pauly, despite his playoff woes, I don't have an issue with that. But those 3, the Cardinals, the Lions, and the Buccaneers, are really the only true Super Bowl contenders in the NFC for me. Maybe if D. Muse gets his team up to where he wants it, he could sneak back into that conversation. I don't know. I do think the games will be interesting every season. You could see Noel, if he's for real next season, hop back into the playoffs. I know he lost a couple of games at the end of the season and ended up missing, thus making me look smart because I don't believe in him anymore. But also Grams, who was 8-9, but he was leading the NFC East for a while there. And he could throw his hat in there too, make it interesting. And let's not forget about NYT, who did win that NFC East. He's 10-7. There's no guarantee he's going to win the division every single season, but he could still definitely contend for that 7 or 6 or even 5 seed.
Yeah, and the NFC only has to beat one AFC team. I mean, that's the good thing for them. You get through the NFC. You don't have to beat Prime, Dan, Bomber. You got to beat one of them, whichever one made it through the gauntlet. But I will say, of the big 4, I call them in the AFC, I think any one of those 4 in the Super Bowl is a favorite over any NFC team that makes it. I think they're the automatic favorite to win. So that's a hill for the NFC to climb. But again, they just got to beat one of them, and that's kind of an advantage for whoever's going to make it. But I do think we'll see the same name showing up on the NFC side.
No, I agree with you completely. I do not think that the NFC will get swept in the Super Bowl. They're going to take at least 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. They're not going to get swept. They won't win the majority, but they're not going to get swept. It's just too impossible to say the AFC is going to win 8 straight games against the NFC. It's not going to happen. And there's also the chance that, one of those not top 4 teams in the AFC comes out of the AFC. We don't know yet what we've seen from Spades or from Jay Smoove or for Rice. We don't know. And even the Jets or the Dolphins or I'd say the AFC South, but I'm not going to. One of those guys could go on a run and come out of the playoffs. We've seen it before. We've seen guys win 3 straight games where they should be the underdog to make the Super Bowl. In that case, they would then be the underdog in the Super Bowl. I mean, I guess it would depend on who comes out of the NFC, but really against at least either of those top 3, which I don't know if there's going to be somebody else that comes out of the NFC other than those 3.
No, I totally agree.
All right, let's move on. We talked about the playoffs enough. That season's over. Let's go back to trades that we talked about last season. Couple big trades. We're not going to touch on all of them because there's too many. You guys are too trade happy. But we want to regrade just a handful of our favorite trades, the most interesting ones to talk about. So we're going to start with a head scratcher for some, questionable for many, downright dumb maybe for a few. The Bucks traded Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, and their second-round pick to the Titans. And in exchange, they got the Titans' first round pick, which turned out to be number 12 overall. The Bucks pick was number 56. So the Bucks get, I think top 12 is not bad. I mean, certainly number 12 is not a bad pick. Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski are both free agents right now. And the Titans did not make the playoffs like I had predicted. So, man, it's hard to think this was a good trade for the Titans.
Yeah, I might have to reach out to Finn's and to see how what the letter grade system is for school these days. But knowing what I know, I'm going to give the Bucks an A+. They got rid of 2 players that they wouldn't even use. OJ Howard is a much better Madden piece than Gronk at this point. He's younger, he's faster, everything cheaper probably. Antonio Brown, he's got a crush on Scotty Miller that has poured over from last cycle, and with Godwin and Evans, Antonio Brown wasn't supplanting those two, so useless. And so he turns that into a top 12 pick. So I'm going to give him an A+. I don't think you can go higher than that in school. I also don't think you can go lower than an F, and that's what I'm going to give the Titans. Even if they weren't free agents, I'd give him an F. Antonio Brown regressed. I think he's an 81 overall. Gronk wasn't all that great to begin with. When I played against Field, I didn't really notice either one of those on the field. I guess Gronk a little bit more. He liked to throw the high passes to him, but I got to give him an F. He lost the 12th overall pick, and even if he gets Antonio Brown back, if everyone in the SML is nice and lets him get him back, because I guess he didn't let them go, he just didn't get a chance to re-sign them, yada yada yada. I just think it's a terrible trade for Field. He has a really good offense. He's really good at offense. He can't play defense, and I think that 12th overall pick would have really helped.
Yeah, it's really hard to justify giving up 12 overall for 2 guys that aren't going to be on your team for multiple seasons. However, I don't know, man. I really want to give Fields some bonus points just for doing a win now trade. Yeah, it didn't work out for you, but it was a win now move. And it cost you a bunch of spots in the draft, but it was really only whatever that turned out to be, like 40 spots. It's not the end of the world. However, both those players hitting free agency for whatever reason. Maybe Field was working or something, and thank you for your service. He's a police officer, but for whatever reason, they're free agents, and the reason really doesn't matter. And for that reason, I have to agree with you. It's an A+ for the Bucks, and it's an F for the Titans.
Yeah, and it'll be curious how Field bounces back. I mean, that I think he's got the best offense in that division by far. He needs to learn how to play defense, but that's a winnable division for all 4 of those members. Obviously Field included. So I think it's winnable even without that pick and without those players. I just think going forward, especially with an aging roster, Julio's getting older, Henry's getting older, Tannehill's getting older. Be a little bit smarter, maybe retain those picks, or at least send them away for younger pieces.
All right, moving on. The next trade we're going to look at is the Giants and Bengals. So the Giants got number 35 overall. That's the Bengals' second-round pick, a very early second-round pick, in exchange for wide receiver John Ross, who's one of the fastest guys in the game, at least one of the fastest wide receivers. I was ready to be upset about this because I don't remember John Ross doing anything. I looked into it. John Ross finished the season with 47 catches, 810 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. Respectable production. However, those all ranked like 3rd on the team. Like every one of those stats ranked at least 3rd on the Bengals. There's something to be said about trading for speed. I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with trading a second if you're a guy that's going to be drafting in the 50s or 60s. I do have an issue, however, trading a glorified first-round pick in number 35 overall for a guy that is maybe your 3rd best weapon, and that is generous. I'll let you give your grade first, and I'll think more about mine.
Yeah, I'm gonna give KJ. I think I'm gonna give him an A. I mean, that's just a stacked Giants offense. Someone probably had to go. I know he's got Tony. I can't remember his name, but he's a stud rookie who's really fast. He's got Galladay as a nice possession guy. So he's got Ingram. He's obviously got Barkley when he comes back from his injury. So I think there's just probably too many weapons there, and he felt like Ross is probably the odd man out, and I'm okay with that. He had to get rid of somebody, and I'm going to give him an A. With Spooky, I think Spooky, who I don't know well because obviously he wasn't here when I got here, and then he came in late. He seems to be very set in how he wants to play, and he's not going to let his team dictate how he plays. He's going to mold the team into how he wants to play. I think one of the struggles here, and because I got to play Spooky when he had John Ross, I played him without him, I believe, and then I played him with him. Once he got him, it was like a shiny new toy, and I think he tried to force the ball to him a lot, and I think that was really his downfall. The trade was posted in Daddy Leagues on the 29th of September. I don't know what week we were in, but John Ross was second in the team in targets behind Joe Mixon, who had like 10 targets in one game. So, like, from a receiving standpoint, he was tied for first on the team, and I don't think he started week 1 on this team. So he obviously really likes John Ross, but I think he tried to force it, and I think his offense sputtered because of that. At least I knew he was going to John Ross a lot. He even out-targeted Jamar Chase. So I'm going to give Spooky. I'm going to give him a solid B, because that's a young player with speed, and in Madden, speed does kill. And I think there's potential there once he gets his quarterback.
So John Ross is 26 years old. He just signed a 3-year extension. So good on you. You re-signed a guy you traded a pretty valuable pick for. 96 speed, 95 excel. Awesome. However, he only went over 100 yards twice. I believe the trade was in week 3, because he did play a couple games for the Giants at least. His average receiving yards, roughly about 50. He did come in under 50 about half the time. I don't know if I would have given up number 35 for him if I'm Spooky, but I think that's a great return for KJ. Traded him to a guy that he didn't think was going to win very many games. And you know what? He didn't. He's got the number 3 overall pick, and conversely also number 35. So I'm going to give KJ and the Giants, I'm going to give them like an A-, because I do think somebody might have jumped and given him a little bit more. Like as close to an A as you can get without being an A. So I'm going to give him an A-. And for Spooky, I'm going to give him a C+, because I really think he gave up too much for him. But the production is there too. And I mean, you hit on something. Guys do that a lot. It's not just Spooky. I'm guilty of it. When I got a guy that I just drafted or just traded for, I want to see what he can do. I want to get him the ball. And that makes you easier to defend and means you're going to throw some more interceptions because of it. But overall, I can't even say it helps you win any games, because you only won, 3 games on the season? So, yeah, C+ is my grade. I don't think it's a terrible trade, but I'll give it a passing grade, but I can't give it anything better.
It's fair.
All right, moving on. Maybe the biggest trade of the year, swapping quarterbacks. All right, we're going to go with the Chargers, and the Chargers are going to get Jared Goff, number 7 overall, and a future first, which is still yet to be determined. That belongs to the Lions, by the way, who are drafting in the late 20s. And in return, the Lions get Justin Herbert and Uchenna Nwosu. Man, it's really tough. I really think this is a really good trade for both teams.
Yeah, I actually gave them both an A. I think on the Lions side, obviously you get your quarterback of the future. Yeah, maybe you wait and see what happens with the Rams pick, and maybe you draft one. But I wouldn't be so. Let's say he doesn't make this trade, sitting at 7 overall, and I'm not exactly confident I'm going to get the quarterback I want. So you know what Justin Herbert is, and he liked him. He likes him both obviously in real life, and he liked him in the game. And it worked out to be a great trade. He made it to the NFC Championship, darn near the Super Bowl. That Nwosu guy had played lights out for him. Great trade for him. And he had a plethora of picks, so it doesn't really hurt him that much. And then on Dan's side, I mean, he gets Jared Goff, the 7th overall pick in this draft, which that's a great asset for him. Whether he trades Goff and goes quarterback, or keeps Goff and takes something else, and then he gets a future first. Dan was not doing well with Justin Herbert. I don't think it was Justin Herbert's fault, but whatever he figured out, Jared Goff was okay at doing what Dan wanted to do. I mean, you rattled off 11 straight wins, 12 if you count the playoffs, something like that, and he was 1 yard probably away from the Super Bowl. So if Eckler picks up that first down on 4th and 1, he's probably going to be able to kick a field goal, and he might win that game. So I got to give him both an A.
Yeah, I'm going to give the Chargers, I give them damn near an A+. I'm going to give them just a straight A. I really want to give them an A+, but I want to see what that number 7 turns into, because Dan did draft a bust defensive end last year, who I believe didn't do very much. But number 7 overall, I mean, that's the Rams pick. That's just about best case scenario when you're trading for that Rams pick. I think he probably expected it to be later, so he's going to get some points for it actually being top 10. That Lions future first is, I mean, pretty much just as valuable as that number 35 overall we were talking about. The Lions could win the Super Bowl next year, and then that pick's going to be 32, but it's at least going to be in the 25 range, I would expect. Uchenna Nwosu for the Lions, he had 6 sacks, which was second on the team. Not very many tackles, but, defensive line doesn't really get that many tackles anyway. Justin Herbert, however, just completely changed this offense. And it catapulted the Lions into the 2nd seed. It got them into the NFC Championship game with, I mean, look at this roster. And you doing all that with Justin Herbert as your quarterback. With that roster, I love the trade. So I have to agree. I'm going to give that, I'll give them an A- just because I think they probably could have kept that top 10 pick and traded a different pick instead. But I still think it's a really good trade for both teams. All right, moving on.
I totally agree.
The next trade we're going to look at is one I don't think we've talked about before. Actually, we might have. I don't remember. The Raiders got Von Miller, who on the season collected 6 sacks and 1 forced fumble. And they sent away a first-round pick, their own first-round pick, which turned out to be number 16, and Clelin Ferrell, who picked up 2 sacks in a kind of a utility rotational role for the Broncos. I'll let you go first on this one again. I don't know what to say about it.
Yeah, I think this is a hard one to grade because obviously there's an owner difference here. So I'm going to grade it as we have it written out here, which is the 16th overall pick. And I'm going to give the Broncos, I'm going to give them a B+. You get a young-ish star defensive end and to replace the old Von Miller, which really didn't do you any good because you weren't doing anything this season anyway in that division. So you had to get rid of him because you don't really want to re-sign him either. And you end up with a 16 overall pick, which he also has the number 1 overall. So that's setting him in a good spot to get. And there's a lot of good young pieces on that Broncos team. This could be a really, really sneaky good roster if Finn's drafts right. The Raiders getting Von Miller, I'm grading this today. I'm gonna give it probably a C+, just because I don't think it moves the needle enough for that team. But I go through that quickly because I have a but. I'm gonna grade this when it was done, and I'm still gonna give the Broncos the B+ because I just obviously everything stays the same. Yeah, the pick gets worse because it's RD, but really he wasn't getting a ton of good offers for Von Miller, so that's probably his best one. And he wasn't going to beat RD with or without Von Miller, so the interdivision trade I don't really care about. I'm going to give RD an A. On the Raiders side, RD is obviously an elite player. We would be talking about the Big Five if he was still here. And that's not a 16th overall pick. It's probably in the 20s. RD is a known bad drafter, his own words, not mine. And Von Miller is a great player, which he would do a lot of good things with. I don't think he would only have 6 sacks if RD was the owner the whole time. And might have been a huge asset come playoff time. So I love the trade for RD. I love the trade for Fins. I don't like the trade for Jay Smoove. Obviously, he had nothing to say about it, but that's how I'm going to grade that tricky one.
I'm going to give the Broncos an A+, except for the fact that it was an in-division trade, in which case I'm going to give them an A-. I hate in-division trades. I really do. I don't think it's realistic. You rarely see them. Yes, they do happen, but they're pretty rare. But you got really good value out of it. Yes, you did not expect that pick to be number 16 because you thought it was going to be RD's pick. And it turned out to be a great pick. I mean, top 16, that's the top half of the league. That's a good pick. and you got a young replacement, which you don't really need because you've got a superstar in whatever that dude's name, Draymond Jones. I should know. He was on my team last year. And on the other side, you got Bradley Chubb. So you don't really need Pharrell, and he's in a rotational a rotation, and he doesn't get much play time, but he still collected 2 sacks on the season. I think he's a good player. I think he can develop into a better player. And so I love getting him as part of that trade as well. For the Raiders, man, it's interesting because, like you said, we went through an owner change. And you know what? I'm not grading this for Jace Move. I'm grading this for RD. I still don't like it. I think he gave up way too much. I think he could have given up just the pick. I didn't think he had to give up Pharrell. You obviously would have needed to give more than just Pharrell, but I didn't think it needed to be a first-round pick. So I'm going to give it a C- because he's really old. And, I mean, he's not going to be around for more than, you would think, 2 seasons. I guess he didn't retire, but I would not be surprised if he retired this next offseason.
Yeah, we might have to confirm in chat, but I thought Tiny was offering a first and Sweat, so I think maybe RD felt like he had to give what he gave. But what if RD? Let's just say RD didn't leave. What if he won the Super Bowl? What would you give him?
I mean, horseshoes and hand grenades is what I'd give him. He's not here, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, if we're going to play the what-if game, I mean, what if the Broncos didn't have the number 1 overall pick? What if they went and won the Super Bowl? It didn't happen, right? So it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, I just think from RD's standpoint, I felt like it was a strong trade, so I gave him an A just because it's an elite player that he didn't have. And for an elite Madden player to get an elite Madden character in the game, in Von Miller, elite player, I think that might have propelled him over the top. But obviously, we'll never know. We will never know. It's unfortunate.
I'll play.
Hopefully, RD will rejoin us.
If RD had won the Super Bowl and Von Miller got a couple crucial sacks, then yes, it's an A+, obviously. However, I don't think RD would have won the Super Bowl. He was not playing great when he was here. He was not playing like he was last cycle. Von Miller only had 6 sacks on the season, regardless of who the user was. I don't know if he would have had those crucial sacks. And in that case, I mean, I don't think RD wins the Super Bowl. So if the owner stayed the same, I probably would have kept it the same grade. I just don't think it's a great trade for the Raiders.
That's fair.
All right, we had this owner on to talk about said trade, as we're about to talk about now. The Jets got Kareem Hunt and David Njoku. They traded away their own first-round pick and Seattle's first-round pick. Now, we gave him a bunch of crap when he was on the episode. I was like, this is a terrible trade. What are you doing? It's a huge overpay. Well, you know what? His first-round pick turned out to be number 22 because he made the playoffs. Seattle just missed the playoffs. That pick was number 17. I think a lot of people expected it to be a lot higher. So he traded number 17 and number 22 for Kareem Hunt and David Njoku. It's a great trade. It's a really great trade for the Jets. And I didn't think I'd be saying this when you gave up 2 first-round picks for him. It's a great trade because you made the playoffs. That is all that matters in this league. Not everybody's going to win a Simbardi. You make the playoffs, you had a successful season. And those 2 players played a huge role in that. And that Jets roster is not great. And DW made the playoffs with them. So I'm going to give DW a B+.
And what about Bomber?
Well, Bomber gets an A. I mean, do you get 2 first-round picks? I don't care who you trade away. That's an A.
Yeah, I'm glad that we talked about this one last because I needed every single second to think about what I was going to say. Because I really want to beat this trade into the ground like I did before. I still don't like it, but it's really hard for me to argue when he wins 11 games and makes the playoffs. And Kareem Hunt and Njoku were big reasons why. And obviously that makes those picks worse, yada yada yada. And I don't really know how deep the drafts are. I've heard they're really deep, and those picks may not be as bad as they used to be. I just didn't feel like giving up 2 first-round picks that Kareem Hunt and Njoku were really going to propel him over the top. Um, I, I'm not saying that he didn't make the playoffs because of them, but he may still have. But again, I can't talk as an 8 and 9 guy. I can't criticize the guy who made the playoffs and traded for 2 guys that really helped him. So I'm gonna have to give him a B plus. I struggle to get into the A territory because I still just don't like it even when I look at it. And then on Bomber's side, yeah, it's an easy A or A plus. Kareem Hunt, no good to him. Nick Chubb obviously proved he can carry the load. He was not injured this season that I remember. He might have had a practice injury, but I mean, he was never out for a long period of time. And then Njoku he's got 2 hands and his name's not Mitchell Schwartz, so he's no good to Bomber. So I love it for Bomber, and it's grown on me for DW. Let's just leave it at that. I've been hard on the guy, and he made me eat some crow by making the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm just going to put it out there. There's no way the Jets make the playoffs if they don't make this trade. And that's the reason I have them at a B+. Because, listen, you don't tell me that Kareem Hunt alone, disregard David Njoku, Kareem Hunt won the Jets at least an extra game, right? And they made the playoffs based on a tiebreaker with the Ravens. So they don't win that extra game, they don't make the playoffs. You don't make this trade, you don't make the playoffs. And that's why I gave it a B+. I still think it's an overpay. I think you paid too much, DW. I'm sorry. Especially if these Browns players, you know how Bomber can draft and turn his team into something special. Especially if these Browns draft picks turn into something crazy. We're going to look back next season, 2-3 seasons from now, and say, what were you doing? But you know what? For now, it's a B+. You made the playoffs, and that's all we asked of you.
Yeah, and just before we go to the next topic, I would just like to have a moment of silence, if you will, for Kareem Hunt's superstar abilities that he got, Return Man and Energizer. So if we could just have a moment of silence.
Yeah,
Thank
okay. That was... he gets a better dev trait. That's it. I mean, those abilities are...
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, kick returns are brutal this year, and maybe he can use that on Bomber as kind of like a revenge on the trade, but because you know how Bomber feels about kick returns. But yeah, Energizer and Return Man, not exactly what GW had in mind. But
are you really going to put your starting running back at kick returner? I don't think I don't think anybody would.
I wouldn't, but I mean, yeah, that's an interesting decision.
Good way to lose some stamina at the very least, if not more snaps towards an injury.
Maybe in a key position. I don't know how easy it is to swap the return person out, but maybe if it's like late game situation or into the half, maybe you throw him back there, but probably not full time.
Energizer can be okay. I think I had it last cycle, and I noticed that maybe it does a little bit for more favorable animations, but yeah, it's like one of the worst abilities in the game. It's not a nothing, it's just not good. Alright, so that takes us to the end of our trade segment. Now, if you guys didn't listen to First and Goal, I suggest you go listen to it. What are you doing? Go listen. You should have listened to when it came out. But if you didn't, I have the clips for you. And we're going to play some clips for you now. It was our first segment. And here is Field General 007 on Matt.
After one season, it's kind of hard to tell, but from season 1, yeah, he was bad. He was 8-9. He had a 1,600-yard rushing performance with Najee Harris. He threw 32 touchdowns, but he also threw 33 interceptions. So if you like to play like Stevie Wonder and throw a shit ton of interceptions, then that's the game plan for you. But if you want to win ball games, that's not going to get it done. You want to talk crap about the Titans, but you did absolutely no better. You actually played worse, buddy. So, yeah, you are pretty bad. I'm buying into your self-deprecation. Only 1,000 yards out of Chase Claypool, 700 yards out of Juju Smith-Schuster. None of this equates to division win. I don't know if people know about this guy named Bomber out there in the AFC North. None of that's good enough to beat these guys, the AFC North. And, yeah, he's bad. And I anticipate that will continue. He will be average to slightly below average like this season, just like his penis, and will continue on.
All right, Matt, before you respond, please remember that you only finished one game ahead of Field in the standings. Okay, go.
Yeah, so, I love Field. I adore the guy. I love watching his streams. He plays Taylor Swift when I request in his streams some Taylor Swift songs. I took no offense to what Field had to say. That's the whole point of First and Goal, the whole point of the Madden League. But I understand why he said what he said. He was just a little bit bitter. We played late in the season. I think Field was in a control your own destiny situation at that point, and I almost hung 50 on him. I put 49 on him. Najee went for 183 yards, which was 50 more than Derrick Henry on 3 fewer carries. Haskins threw for 3 touchdowns. I kind of lit him up. His offense lit me up, but he couldn't play defense to save anything. And I think I ruined his season as far as making the playoffs go. I understand his bitterness, but he makes some good points. I'm not good, and I've said that. His points were a little off. I mean, Najee Harris, 1,600 yards. That was 3rd in the league. He missed a game due to injury. He wasn't catching Henry or Chubb anyway, but he's the worst back I've ever had. He's slow. He doesn't have any abilities that are any good, but I made it work, and he's a ton of fun to run with. Honestly, my offense is 5 times better than it was last season or last cycle. My defense is just 15 times worse. So I don't think Field was wrong. I don't think I'm great, but I think it's a little bit of bitterness from when we played, and I did win that game 49-35.
All right, so that wasn't the only person that took some shots at you. Let's listen now to Prime on 1st and Goal.
Yeah, I think he's bad. Or at least he doesn't meet the expectations that he set last year, which was obviously aided by last Madden, the running Madden that Faz spoke of. He's bad team building. He's sticking with the quarterback. He refuses to trade. I offered him a trade for a backup linebacker. He refused to even negotiate, and then the guy recorded 2 tackles on the season. Now he's going to hit free agency. It's just stuff like that. That's bad team management. And now he's going to stick with the 65 overall quarterback. Even if he signs somebody in free agency, he doesn't have to draft someone high. Bad team management. And yeah, without being a super running game Madden, we've seen some kryptonite. So yeah, I'm just going to call him Motorola. He's a thing of the past.
All right. He called you bad team builder, and he called you a thing of the past. How do you respond?
Yeah, so Prime's take kind of confused me because he would always poke fun at me in chat about when I would say I was bad, that I'm not bad, and then he went on 1st and Goal and said I was. So I was kind of off taken by that. But he makes good points as far as the fact that I'm not that great. But again, like Field, he doesn't back it up with things that really solidify the point. Yeah, okay, I'm starting Dwayne Haskins, but Dwayne Haskins is not why I lost games. If you watch them, I can't play defense. Dwayne Haskins plays offense. So it has nothing to do with it. And then the bad team builder is stemming from the fact that I wouldn't trade a Melvin Ingram for a 4th-round pick. Yeah, I had no intentions to re-sign Melvin Ingram, but at the time of the discussion, I didn't know what fatigue was going to look like. If Watt or Highsmith got hurt, Ingram was a very good backup, or if they got fatigued. And Watt did get hurt a few times. And that's how Melvin Ingram got the small stats that he did. They just weren't long injuries, but if they were, I had a very capable backup. Also, I didn't want, getting something for someone like a 4th-round pick over nothing. Yeah, sure, that's better. But I also didn't want to use up one of my trades. I got J.C. Jackson. That was one trade. Ben Roethlisberger, while I didn't immediately have plans, I did trade him. There's 2 of my 3 trades. If I trade Melvin Ingram, I'm out of trades until after the Super Bowl. I obviously didn't use the 3rd trade anyway, but you never know. So I wanted to leave my options open, and I just didn't feel like a 4th-round pick really moved the needle. I love my roster. I haven't made any moves this offseason. So I'm not going to disagree with what he said, but again, and I will say this every single time someone says something, Dwayne Haskins is not why I was 8-9. If I could have had Patrick Mahomes, I would still have been 8-9. But again, I loved the topic, and I loved the back and forth.
F, marry, kill. Prime, Field, and Mike FML.
Oh, Jesus. You caught me off guard with this one. I'm gonna kill Prime. I'm gonna F Field, and I'll marry Mike.
I love that. All right, no explanation. That's just gonna come out tomorrow morning, and people are gonna be upset. All right, guys. Matt, you got anything else to add?
No, I don't. I'm super excited. Draft's coming up later today, and I know it's gonna give all the good players are really excited because they just were in the playoffs, and maybe they were so close and they just know what they have to do to get over the hump. But for us that didn't do so well, we're looking forward to the draft and getting some youth on our team and seeing what happens in season 2. So let's get ready.
All right, guys, remember, Sunday morning, Halloween morning, we are having a special edition of M&M in the Morning. That is the Halloween edition with special guest Spooky World. You're not going to want to miss that. That is a little over 48, actually exactly 48 hours from the time that you are listening to this. So get ready for that. That's going to be a fun one Sunday morning. Thanks for listening, and we will see you on Sunday.